Hi, welcome to the channel. I am Summer. We are in our bob era for today's video. I recently just got one myself, so I was inspired to show you guys my exact cut, and I will link below a curling tutorial for this length of hair that I have done in the past. With all that being said, let's get started. Okay, I am so excited to get started. We're gonna section her off first, which most of my haircuts I do it this way, but in a bob especially, we're gonna go right at that ear and do the same on the other side. And I went a little too far back there, so we're gonna take out just a little bit more. Perfect. So with this bob, I'm gonna cut it in similar length to my own hair. I can actually pull my hair in a small pony if I want. I typically would just throw it half up and just let whatever random hairs fall in the back because I don't really care if it looks a little bit crazy. But what's nice about this length though overall is that you still will have the ability to pull it back in a pony. So we're gonna be removing about a good 1.5 inches here. So it's still resting right on that shoulder, but even still that a little nub of a pony. And obviously if you wanted to go shorter, you always could. But that is what our guide is gonna be for today's video. And then I'm gonna do it pretty even all the way around, just very, very slight elevation. I want it more of like a even bob all the way through, not so much extended length throughout the front. And then we're also gonna be creating some just soft, minimal layers. I don't have a ton of layers in my hair currently because I wanted to maintain the most amount of thickness. But there is ever so slight, just a really soft layer and then very minimal face frame around the front. So as you can see here, I've got just a diagonal parting here. I like to do that. You could go straight across as well. I believe my other bob tutorials I go straight across, but I'm just gonna do a small angle, and it's best to break these into 2 sections because you're gonna get maximum control, and also it's just easier to clip this back hair into 2 sections like this. It's too much hair. Apparently it's too much hair to try to clip into 2, but it's definitely too much hair to clip into 1. So what I'm gonna do is position the head just ever so slightly down, and we're just gonna come in and start our cutting. We're using our shark fin shears. I will leave them linked in the description should you be looking for any. And like I said, we're just basically removing it to just barely off of that shoulder. So I'm kind of using that as my guide. I'm gonna go fine side of my comb. Cut, and I am doing a blunt cut. And what I like to do is I like to grab my corners, make sure that they're even. This looks a little bit shorter, so give me 1 sec. Yeah, I probably over-directed that slightly, standing off to the side, but that is okay. We'll just nip this here. So typically with a bob, you could actually opt to cut this baseline a little bit shorter because what tends to happen is this likes to poke out underneath. Because it's so flat and straight to the head, it usually tends to curve, and you'll find a lot of times you need to go back in and nip them. So you could opt to keep it the length it is now or raise it shorter. I think I'm gonna just leave it so that way I can show you guys later how you would go to nip it out, just because that's going to be an issue 99% of the time with bobs. So we're taking our next section. It is very small. I'm going to be able to see through to my guide easily. I always preach sections to you guys, but with a bob, they are key. Like, this is a haircut that you definitely need to take your time. You do not want to rush. Nice, clean, even sections. We're just going to comb that hair straight down. I'm gonna do everything basically one length. I'm not elevating out. I wanna keep it nice and full. I can always go back in later and soften it after it's dry, but we're going under the basis like my own hair. I wanna maintain the most amount of thickness and weight in my hair. That's like the whole perk of a bob, is you typically have it looking really full and thick, because if you're somebody with like thinner, finer hair like myself, it just really keeps it looking all nice and clean. So I'm gonna wait to do any sort of elevation until after we get it dry, just so I can see how it's laying. And I express this all the time with any haircut, but especially again with a bob. The cut is not done until you have dried it and then go back in and cut more. It always lays different when it is dry. You never wanna leave it after it's wet and be like, oh, that's good, I'm fine. You need to go in and cut it a little bit more. I feel like I'm being a little long-winded with my cutting today. I just love bobs, they're so fun. And then we're just gonna do the same pattern, bringing everything straight down in the back, a one-length haircut. And then after we get all of this back done, I will go in and do some soft, longer layers to show you how you can create a little bit of shape while maintaining that weight still and that bob feel. And usually once I get past the occipital bone, I will have the client look a little bit more straight up, just because it's really the occipital bone under region that you want to focus on having their head down. Because of the curve of the head, the hair lays a little bit different. So we're at our last section, which it's not super crazy thick, so I'm just gonna bring it all down and cut. See my guide? So now what you would want to do is check your back corners first to see how they are lining up. So I'm just going to grab right behind the ear. You're going to bring that forward and make sure that they're matching. And this, I believe, looks good. Gotta look myself. Yep, that is good. So now what we're going to do is I'm just doing a very, very soft layer. I will probably cut into this more when it is dry, because the reason dry cutting I prefer, I'm a big fan of dry cutting in general, but with a bob especially, is you really get to see, like I mentioned earlier, how it lays. So you know exactly like where you want to take more weight out of, more hair out of, or length, just because the hair can sometimes be deceiving when wet. And especially, again, for somebody who wants to maintain the most weight and thickness, cutting it dry is always going to give you that visual result. So as you can see, I've just done a small section here, and what we're going to do is we're just going to come out with this, and we're going to go all the way up, let all that hair fall, and I'm just going to cut right up into it at an angle. And then what I'm gonna do is just lightly point cut in to this top hair. Grab our next section. Coming up, all of this hair has fallen. My scissors are at an angle here. Cut. And then what I like to do is bring the hair back down and just slightly point cut into that. And then we are over directing this back, up, not as much to cut here. Perfect. And then just repeat on the other side. And this hair is coming back, up, just this little corner. So now that we have that done, we are right at that shoulder area. She's completely off the shoulders. My shoulder is flat here, so the length is brought up some, but again, we're still gonna be able to get a little bit of ponytail, and then we might shorten it a little bit. We'll see. So we're gonna let out our first side. And we have a lot of length here to remove. We are gonna move in sections to cut this. We're not just gonna comb it all straight down and chop. You wanna do the sections so you make sure that you get the nice, even length everywhere. And then like I said, we are gonna be keeping this pretty even. I don't want like this severe angle, but I'm just barely gonna angle it a little bit. I just feel like right now, like the super severe angle or like that stacking look in bobs is not exactly in right now. I love that look, but right now it's not really quite as popular. So I've just got a very, very minimal angle with my fingers, and we're just coming right in to our guide. I might even out this corner just a little bit. Perfect. I will say this, you do the purpose of the angle to explain a little bit better, and not that this is like a severe one. I don't like it when it's completely straight across even, and the reason for that is when somebody goes to, like, if they tilt their head back or from a profile, the back will end up looking longer, which is gonna sort of like drag down the face in a weird way. So when you leave it, this mannequin isn't exactly a great example because her head doesn't move the same. But when you leave it a little bit longer here, it balances out nicely. I just think when the back looks longer, when you're like laughing or something, it just doesn't have that same bob feel. So that's why I like to always leave it just slightly shorter in the back, which doesn't mean you have to have this crazy long angle in the front, but just enough of one. And then we are just following our guide. I can see right through to it. And this will be our last section. See my guide. Perfect. Nice, clean, thick line. Gonna have lots of weight left in it. And then I'm just gonna now cut the other side first before moving into our side layers. Again, I'm slightly angling my fingers, nothing crazy. And then we're straightening out in the front. And then sometimes you get some hairs that'll still fall into that back section from the sides, depending on how your client's hair falls. And then what we'll do is we'll bring it forward to the front. We're gonna check our sides. So what I like to do is, again, I would stand in front of the client, but to show you guys, I usually tend to start right in the ears, and then I'll bring it forward. I think her head is, there we go. I'll bring it forward, meeting in the middle here, because this was a middle part, and see how that lines up to see if I need to cut any more length anywhere. So I'm gonna check that now in the front because I can't see in my monitor. All right, so we have a little extra length on this side that I need to bring up. So I'm gonna come back to my back sections here. Seeing it's probably right in there that I need to nip at. Yep. And so then we'll just continue coming to the front. And then what you would do is take another look. Right there. And I can always bring down these front pieces. And I can see here. I'm just going back through where I cut in that front to blend this in. So perfect. So small sections and always checking your perimeter. So you would check your back perimeter as you're cutting before you do the layers, then cut your sides, check that side perimeter on both sides to make sure that they're lining up, and then we will start our side layers. So again, we are keeping these fairly long. I am gonna do a very, very soft face frame. I think I might do this mannequin with the face frame that I really wanted to do for myself, but I was too scared because my little receded hairs are just taking their sweet time to grow. But what I had my stylist do was I had her bring all of my face frame out for the side layers because I did not want any of this weight jeopardized. On myself, my sides are really a good portion, especially right around my face, is literally made up of my very top layer. Like, I don't have the hair that's basically right here. So I'm always really nervous about cutting too much of that. So I like to clip it out of the way. So that is what I had my girl do. And I'll do the same on the other side. And when it comes to, I know so many of you have sadly like really bad salon experiences, but don't be afraid to like be very descriptive in explaining. This is why it's also good to do a consultation before you even get your haircut. So first and foremost, you should be looking in your area on Instagram for like #bobs if you want a bob, or if you see somebody out and about and you love their bob, like walk right up to them, ask them where they got their hair cut, And then you can always book a consultation with that stylist, so that way they get to see your hair, how it lays, how you style it, and you can really explain to them with your hair dry what it looks like, what the issues are, and you don't have to commit to getting them the haircut right away. So it's a good way if you're going to somebody who you've never seen before and you're nervous, book a 15, 20-minute consultation with them, and that way they can see and understand your hair and you can explain to them. And then if you don't get a good vibe, you're not like having this awkward interaction of like, well, never mind, I don't want this haircut. You can leave and either go back and make an appointment or not go back and try to keep finding your hunt. So I have done my section here, and what we're doing is we're just pulling everything straight back to basically the center of the head. So it might be a slight diagonal, and if I can clip her, we're just coming straight back to the center of the head, similar to how we did our back layers. Everything's coming straight up, and you're just cutting straight up into it with your scissors pointed to the ceiling. And then if you want, you could go in and do the soft point cutting, but I'm gonna wait and do that after I get it dry. So again, we're taking all of this, we're combing straight back. You're gonna really over direct it and cut. Last piece. And you wanna over direct as you angle up. Like you don't wanna come in here and angle up all the way to here. I like to just bring it straight back so I'm preserving still that weight line. Because again, I don't wanna jeopardize the thickness and weight that this client wants to keep. And we'll repeat the same on the other side. So again, we're coming straight back, I'm twisting up, cut. Okay, I'll repeat that once more. Straight back, we're twisting up, we're over directed to this back, twist up and just cut that little hair that's sticking out. Last section. Very little hair. Okay, so for the face frame, I really wanted to, on mine, I wanted to have like these more defined swoops, but I was really scared, and my hair is so straight naturally that it does take a lot of work to get my like swoop to stay in place when I want it straight. So I'm glad I opted for a longer version, but I'm gonna do maybe just a baby shorter amount with this mannequin here today, give it the hair that I wanted. Okay, so we're gonna come in, and keeping in mind though that this is a client who wants the movement, but they don't wanna lose that weight, we're gonna do a very small section of our face frame here because we want to preserve the weight that might be around the face. Whether they have a lot, don't have a lot naturally, we wanna be able to keep as much of it as possible. So we're just gonna be doing this very little amount in the front. And then I need to re-spritz her. And so I just wanna see a very soft swoop, kind of in the jaw area, middle of the chin, a little above it. So what I'm gonna do is take my very inner corners from both my sections. We're gonna come down and do a little twisting. I'm gonna keep it longer, right at the jaw, cut. And then what we're gonna do to give our swoop but preserve our weight, I like to come stand on the opposite side of the face. I'm gonna angle into this a little bit more from where I cut, and I'm gonna pull towards me. So coming down, my shears are at an angle. I'm slivering and pulling towards me to just blend that in. And we're gonna go on the other side. Sliver, pull, that's good. Sometimes the other side, you have to cut up from the bottom. It's a little harder to do the angling sometimes, so always go a little bit at first. I'm gonna do that one more time because I know I did not take off enough. perfect. And so now what I'm gonna do is comb down the rest of that face frame, and I'm gonna look at it and see where I can just lightly blend it in. Again, I don't wanna remove a lot of this. This is kind of similar to a haircut I did, I think like 2 videos ago. I'll link it below where I created a little bit more of a face frame. So you need all this hair to blend in more, and we're gonna do the same thing. So I'm coming down, I see my point up here, coming in with my scissors, slivering and pulling towards me. And so that softened it up just enough. If I need to cut more when it's dry, I can. Right in here, coming in. Sliver and slide towards you. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is get her styled. She's a little dry everywhere, so I'm gonna just spritz her down. And then I'm actually gonna be blow drying her today, actually with a blow dry brush. I feel like a lot of you actually would probably be more likely to use a blow dry brush on your own at home. So that's what I'm gonna do. I use this all the time when my hair is shorter. I love this one. You get 2 brush heads with it. It's the T3 Airbrush Duo. And what's nice actually is you can pop off the top and you can use it as a rough dry blow dry. So it's really versatile. I'm gonna just put in Redken's Big Blowout. This is really just more so for heat protection. I personally, on human hair, don't feel like it really does more than that. It's supposed to give volume and all this stuff, but I feel like it should just be used as a heat protectant. It's a great product as a heat protectant, but the other things that comes with it, I'm not so much impressed with. So I'm just gonna do that, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rough dry her for a little bit first with the T3 Airbrush Duo, and then I'm gonna use the round brush head with it to start shaping her hair to get it nice and full and voluminous, and then we will go in and see what we need to cut. So after you've done your rough dry, I like to break it up into a few sections. That just makes it easier for you to go through your blow dryer. And I am using this on high heat, and you're just gonna work it like you would any other blow dry with a round brush to really create that shape, give it some lift. You wanna roll at the end to create that nice bend, and you're just gonna repeat that through the whole process. So if you want to get maximum bounce and bend in your bob, you want to make sure that you are working the blow dryer brush all the way up, and I like to roll it into the head. That way you're getting that nice round shape all throughout it, and it just creates a really nice bouncy feel to the ends from the shape of the round brush. You want to remember that when you get to the crown that you are really over directing and lifting the hair to create that volume. Again, roll the blow dryer into the hair to create that nice round shape, and then we will move into the front. All right, so once you are to the front, I like to take the blow dryer brush, you're just gonna place it in, and you're gonna literally, I like to blow dry it back away from the face in the front. That's my personal opinion. And you would just continue to swoop it the same as you bend. So you're gonna pull it out, roll it, pull it out, your head. So you're gonna swoop, roll down, then you're gonna let it out, and you'll just continue those patterns until it is dry. Okay, we've got her dry. I love it. Ugh, I would have died for my face frame to come out looking like this, but alas, a mannequin typically has all the hair in the world. So what we are going to do now is take a look at our perimeter first, all the way around, and see again if we need to bring up any of these hairs that like just stick out, but it is so nice, thick and full. So what I'm gonna do is, I do this with my haircuts in salon. I have the client look back down, and I typically will resection off just at this occipital bone area, just so I can see the hair. And I'll just poke at it and lay flat with my hand. So usually this hair that likes to stick out when you do the curve here is hair that needs to be nipped, because like I said, the hair is so much shorter here, so it's gonna lay flatter too, also just because the way that it falls on the nape. And that's gonna poke out, and it's really, truly, it's not a good look. So I'm actually gonna take just a little bit more hair out of the way here. And again, this is why you can always opt to cut it shorter at first, just because you do have to go back in. But a lot of times, even cutting it shorter, some of the hairs are just like ridiculous with the amount that they want to stick out. So again, I'll have them look all the way down. I'll clip it up. I'll push down with my fingers. Normally, I will just kind of go in with my scissors and nip at it underneath. I have like gotten down on my knees to do this before too, whatever it takes to make these hairs go away. And then I'll push down with my hands. I'm gonna let out this top section that I clipped out. See how that's looking. Let me angle her more. I don't know how well you guys can see this. It's about as far as down I can put her head. So it's just these little under guys. And usually it's more in the center, I find. And I've used also too like trimmers to do this. I'll just go in and hit it. You can do that as well, or you can use the scissors. Not every client wants the trimmers. They tend to freak out a little bit because, you know, they're worried you're gonna obviously cut too much. And then I'll have them look back up. Here I'm gonna squat down. And I think that's good. So now what I'm going to do is we're just gonna lightly cut into this. I'll show you again from the side. Again, remember we did an all one length haircut. I didn't have any elevation at all, and we just did some soft layers. But because we just did the slightest angle going towards the front, you get that nice rounded shape that a bob creates, and this is what makes this look so thick and full. But sometimes I want to cut into it just a little bit to soften it up, which is nice too as well, because see, like this, it just kind of gets too heavy, like it pokes out, it looks weird. And especially, oftentimes people have more hair in the back of their head than they do in the sides. So if you skip this part that I'm about to do, it can tend to look a little, blended's not the right word, but it just looks like too bulk and thick in the back, and then the sides don't line up, so it doesn't flow as well. That would be the proper word to use. So I just got her sectioned off above the occipital bone. You could do one more section if you want. So what you would do is not take down your section from cutting your little nape hairs. And then I'm just gonna go scissor over comb. And what this does is it helps to soften it up, but you're not like cutting a layer per se, you're sort of just lightly point cutting into it to just take out a little bit of that weight and texturize it. So it'll be nice for when you go to curl it or wave it, you'll have a little bit more movement, and you'll be able to get a shape a little easier by just lightly texturizing this. But again, I like to wait to do this until after I've gotten it dry, because if you do too much when it's wet, you're gonna remove way too much weight and you're not gonna have that same look. And especially if the client wants a lot of weight left, they're gonna be really upset if you've taken too much. So you always wanna wait until it is dry. And I think on this side, we need a little bit more layering right in here. Maybe just in that middle part right here. It looks a little too bulky to me. And when I'm layering it, again, I'm just lightly point cutting. I prefer point cutting unless somebody has like a ton of hair naturally. I will use my texturizing shears, but typically for people who have finer hair like myself and they want a bob, I just will use my regular shears for point cutting. And we need to shorten this top layer just a little bit more. I'm still over directing back for that. Yeah, that blended it up. These were a little bit shorter than this side. And then we're gonna take a look through the front. So much hair, I would kill. I say this like every mannequin cut that I would kill for the mannequin's hair. Like I said, we just did a very soft face frame, nothing extreme, again, because we're wanting to keep that weight. I think she's just a little shorter over here, so I'm just gonna lightly tweak this side. So I'm just gonna grab the hair and I'm just gonna slightly point cut into it here. It's not a lot that it's off. Again, you could take this down center, but it was just barely off. It's like right in here. But otherwise, she came out great. So I'm gonna get her fully styled with some hairspray and we will get you guys out of here. This came out so good. All right, here we have our finished and final look. I am so obsessed with how it came out. I always say this every haircut, but I love it. We have so much thickness still all throughout that perimeter, and then the sides, again, we just have really soft, long layers that give just enough shape, but you maintain that weight and thickness everywhere, which makes this haircut so great. And then through the front, we have just the ever so slightly small face frame to just kind of open up the face a little bit. I'm envious of this mannequin. I hope you guys enjoyed today's tutorial, and I will leave linked below a curling tutorial I did on myself a couple years ago with my hair this length, so that way you guys can see. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.